All right, let's dive into the calls. I've thrown out a couple of potential topics, your encounters with mysterious strangers and remarkable items that you have unearthed, discovered. But Charles has been waiting patiently in Sebastopol, California, and he wanted to get in on the last conversation with Joe Allen, and we ran out of time. So let's say hi to Charles on the wild card line. Charles, welcome.
Hi there. Thanks for taking the call, and I'm sorry I missed him. But here's my thought on this. I mean, I've been researching and actually working with AI for many, many years. Back in 1997, actually, I was a participant in what was called the Virtual Humans Conference. I'm not kidding. Actually, there were several of these. And this exact topic was being talked about even then. Be able to mimic different people's appearances, their voices, deepfake, all this kind of stuff. There's nothing new about any of this. The only difference is that the tools become much better. And tools is kind of where I'm aiming at. You're not going to put this toothpaste back in the tube. It's not going away. People have been talking about trying to regulate this, but what are you actually going to regulate? I mean, it's like holding water in a fishnet. Besides, even if we were to determine some kind of an edict or a protocol for saying we forbid AI to do whatever, it's not going to affect the rest of the world. We don't have the authority to project our, government will upon the rest of the world. I can assure you, without the slightest hesitation, China is very aggressively, in fact, they're probably ahead of us right now. They don't care about any sort of ethical regulations at all, I can assure you. And so are many other, both private and nation-state entities around the world. So, like it or not, we're sort of in this evolutionary path. Now, here's the thought I might offer, though. I see this as being part of natural evolution. What I mean by that is we have evolved to the point we have now been able to build ever better tools. I mean, if you go back many tens of thousands of years, we went from hunter-gatherers to having organized societies, having industry and crossing through the industrial age and all the different steps that signify where we are now in ever more rising layers of complexity and shortening timelines. So here we are within a handful of years. We're probably going to cross that line where ChatGPT is going to be like a minor footnote compared to what's coming around the corner. In fact, I would tend to agree that we have much more sophisticated stuff sort of hiding in the dark projects world. I have no doubt about that at all. And I'm sorry to say, but smart weapons are definitely what's coming. But here's the whole point. If we have the wisdom to manage using the tools effectively, then we successfully allow ourselves to get to the next rung on the evolutionary ladder. If we fail and we succumb to whatever damage that creates, that's just the way things are. Evolution tends to be not a friendly process. There's always going to be extinction events, and some other organism or type will come out ahead. This has probably happened on many other worlds. I don't see this as being particularly unique to just the Earth. I think this is a very common model. But we're actually here now. I find it fascinating just to be able to look at this process as it's occurring. But I thought that your guest might have had some thoughts about that.
Well, I appreciate it. It's kind of a laissez-faire approach to it. Whatever happens is intended to happen. That's just part of evolution, and we either adapt or we die. I don't know. I don't know that I would share that sort of approach, that hands-off approach. You might be right about our inability at this point to regulate it, but I don't know. I do have concerns about, I know these terms sort of have lost their meaning. They're thrown around so often, but things like a technological singularity and where we are no longer, part of the decision-making equation. That frightens me. I don't know if I'm even equipped at this stage of the game to adapt or deal with this new reality. I don't even know that I'll recognize reality. I have a hard enough time, watching somebody play that John Madden's football, like 2018. Like the graphics on that now are almost indistinguishable from reality. If that's where it's headed, I don't know. Just put me on an island with my vinyl records. Thank you for the call, Charles. Very insightful. Let's say hi to Holly is in Utah, and she had an interesting stranger encounter. Holly, good morning.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. I hope your Thanksgiving went well.
Actually, I'm a Canadian. We have our Thanksgiving in October, but I'm certainly hoping you enjoyed yours.
Oh, sure. I ate enough food for the both of us.
That's okay.
So my encounter actually occurred some years ago, and it was over the telephone. I had a friend who, from the time that I met him, he was residentially challenged, as was I, for the majority of our friendship over the years. And so one morning we woke up struggling in the cold, and he had reoccurring cancer that was just now again hitting him. And I could see he was about twice my age, but he was still my little brother. I had adopted. I was very protective of him always. And little curmudgeon as he could be, there was nothing I wouldn't do for him. And so I took a leap of faith on a stranger, asked for a chance at a home that was vacant nearby, and they took the word of good faith over the phone. And I know that it was led by the faith of taking care of him, getting him out of the cold. And so sometime into the time we had this house, he started disappearing for about 2 weeks out of every month. And I found out later that he had finally gotten his Social Security money and didn't intend to pay me back, which I was okay with. It wasn't about money. I just wanted him safe. But he would spend 2 weeks blowing his money on activities that weren't allowed at my house. I had rules that he didn't want to follow, and he had his late in life rebellion, and I don't blame him. In his state of life, he was in so much agony all the time. I just really wish that he could find joy in any moment. But I got a call one night from another dear friend that looked after him, saying how worried they were because he had rented a room at a nearby motel that was pretty, down there, with
A little dodgy, yeah.
And whatnot. Yeah, and so him being there wouldn't be such a worry, except for he was overly generous and not always capable of standing up for himself. He was pretty much just getting robbed left and right. And after too many people had taken advantage of him, and my friend's worry was that he still had a couple days that he'd paid for, so he wasn't going to come home yet. But they wanted me to go be there to be, the muscle to ward off the ne'er-do-wells. And right. So I, rolled down there, and when I got there, so did my other best friend that was another, caretaker of his caregiver. And we convinced him it might help him because he was in so much pain. It was terrible to see. And when you see a grown man tearing up, without being able to control it, it's heartbreaking.
That is very rough. Sorry, Holly, I don't want to rush you too much, but where is the mysterious stranger in this story?
So we got him a bath, and he was in there, and we sat there tearfully trying to decipher what to do, what would best be. And the phone rang, and we weren't expecting anyone. He said he was in the bathroom. He hollered he wasn't expecting anyone, and it was the outside line, not from the motel. And so I was already irritable. I answered the phone hastily and harshly. What, and it's 3 a.m. or something. And this person on the other line starts by saying, "So do you have something I'm looking for?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" I had no idea who this was. And they said, "You know what I mean." And I went off on them. I couldn't take it anymore. And I just lashed out. And within half a second of a breath after just ringing this fellow, he immediately sucked all the negativity out of the air. And he said so sincerely, "I am so sorry that you're going through this. I am praying for your friend right now. And I really didn't mean to bother you. And it was a mistake to have called this number. And I hope this will forgive me." And I calmed down, and I could feel this peace, like, just resonating from this man's voice. And we ended up speaking for about half an hour. And the discussion was binary beast. Binaural, I don't know how to say it, but the
oh yes
the frequencies.
Yes,
and so I had never heard of it, but he sat there explaining the benefits of it and told me how to look it up online. And it was just, it astounded me, just the claim that he was making, and I felt that he was true. And at the end, he asked if he could say a prayer for us all, and said that they would all be watching out. I never got this man's name, but when my friend came out, a little less in pain, more relaxed, we asked him if it was okay if we put this on in the background, and we just picked one at random. And that was the very last time I ever saw him without the light in his eyes. And so he did end up eventually passing away from his cancer, but I never saw him that miserable ever again. And so
the binaural beats, reduced his pain? They helped him.
There's frequencies that are meant for healing or cognitive clearance or clarity or whatever. And with today's technology and the availability of media on YouTube or whatever, I mean, there's an endless amount of available versions of it that can help you through anything. And it wasn't just him that helped heal. It actually was like the last day that I felt hopeless, the last day I had ever considered, giving up, throwing in the towel. And
a stranger calls you on the phone, turns you on to binaural beats, and sucked all the negativity out of the room and had this calming effect. Did you ever find out who that person was?
It was what?
Did you ever find out who that person on the phone was?
No, nope. And nobody, we knew a lot of people that were staying there at the time. Nobody had a clue.
It's a remarkable story. Just a random wrong number, perhaps, or not. Thank you so much for the call, Holly. Let's see. Let's say hi to. Let's see where we're going to go. Cornelius. Hey, Cornelius. Welcome. How are you, my friend?
Hey there, Richard, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I was just telling Donna that Chuck O, the blind researcher, called me. I wanted to thank you for having him on for the JFK assassination and stuff. And I hope you look up Abraham W. Bolden Sr. And
yes, I wrote that down. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I wrote that down when you mentioned it. Abraham Bolden, yes.
Good. And there's another thing I want to tell you, Peter. I don't know if you listen to the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab. He's a perfect Bond villain. He said that you will own nothing and be happy. And so AI is coming. People just need to get ready. I call it the Antichrist intelligence, and it'll be the mark of the beast. And Elon Musk, he's going to say, I can put a chip in your head to cure your blindness. I can put a chip in your back to cure you from being paralyzed. So everybody, I call him Evil Musk. So everybody just needs to get ready for this. The Social Security number was the start of it, barcodes, and we've just been gradually accepting Harari on the World Economic Forum. He's an Israeli. He's a homosexual. He believes that we can rewrite the Bible with AI and stuff. So that guy that had called earlier in the earlier segment talking about AI and stuff like that, the guests and the callers, they're right on top of it. I think within the next 10 years, and even Biden has signed this executive order where we're going to a digital dollar. So they'll have total control of it. If you wanted to give me something, Mr. White's a subversive, Richard, you can't give him anything. Almost like they did your poor truckers up there in Canada and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's coming. We can't stop it. The Bible, like I tell everybody, the God, guns, and gold, man, the Bible, bullets, and beans, man, Bible. Basic instructions before leaving Earth. That's what the Bible is. People, need to believe it. There's nothing we can do to stop it. We can slow it down. But God has his timetable, and the devil has his timetable, and people just need to be aware.
Hey, Cornelius, I mentioned to you last time we talked. If you want, it's up to you. I had someone email me who wants to give you a book. It was the book that Ray Hicks. Do you remember when Ray Hicks was on the program?
Oh, look, I talked to him too, so I wanted to thank you for that too, Richard.
Wonderful. But if you want to, it's up to you. If you want to leave your mailing address with Donna, it's entirely up to you. Because I have a listener who wants to send you that book, but I'll let you I'll put you on hold with Donna, and that's your decision. If you want to leave her your address, and then she'll send it to me, and I'll forward it to the listener, and she wants to send you that book, which I think is very sweet. All right, I think I can squeeze in one more here. Let's say hi to Jody in Colorado, first time caller. Hey, Jody, welcome.
Richard, how are you tonight, sir?
Very well, thank you.
I was telling Donna that I was listening to one of the Dolly Parton songs that you had on, and I asked her, I said, have you heard the new song out with with Dolly Parton and Steve Perry, Open Arms.
Well, from Journey, Open Arms. I've seen it. I've seen the track listed on the album, but I haven't heard it. Is it good?
It's a great song. You can get it on YouTube. My wife is a good friend with Steve Perry. She talks to him quite a bit. And I live in Colorado now, but I lived in Las Vegas for 20 years and played on the Strip for 20 of those years. I used to meet everybody, like B.B. King was a good friend, Barry Manilow. We used to party over at their houses over in Rancho Circle. Art Bell, I knew him well. I'd been to his house over in Vegas with another business that I had. Just great guys. Willie Nelson is a friend. His lead guitarist at one time, his name was Jody Payne. Well, my name was Jody. One night, all of us got a little bit too drunk, and there was a rehearsal in the morning with Willie Nelson, and I got caught carrying Jody Payne off of the elevator as Willie Nelson came in. And I said, "How are you tonight, sir?" Fine. He said, "Is that Jody?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You tell him." He said, "He knows the new rules. If you're wired, you're fired." Okay.
All right, Jody, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Great call. Paul McCartney taking us into the break with Souvenirs. Back with more of your calls on Coast to Coast AM. Welcome back to Coast AM. Richard Syrett coming to you live from my home studio in Thornhill, old Thornhill Village, just north of Toronto, sitting in for George Norrie. And I want to get back to some calls who wanted to get in on the AI transhumanism topic earlier with my guest Joe Allen, but we didn't get them on. So let's go east of the Rockies. Chuck is in South Carolina. Chuck, thanks for your patience.
Not a problem, Richard, not a problem. I do got a problem, though. I was going to talk to you about AI and all that, and then Charles on the West Coast kind of made me feel like anything I got to say is going to be stupid as heck.
No. Don't think that at all.
I just got to thinking how funny this was while I was waiting to come in. You mentioned, the old topic about digging up something unusual or encountering strangers, and I'm saying, hey, man, isn't this the first time we talked? We had this little thing, and I was the guy with the sousaphone. But anyway,
oh yes,
yeah, like you remember, yeah, right. But,
how am I going to forget a sousaphone?
Anyway, about the AI, the only thing I wanted to say about it, add to it a little bit, is everybody's kind of afraid of it and not knowing what it's all about and everything. And it just kind of reminds me of all the science fiction I read back in the early 70s, and back then I was reading a lot of stuff that was written back in the 50s, and back then it was like computers was the thing we had to watch out for. It was the evil computer that was going to wreck us, and pretty much the stuff they were describing was pretty much AI. And I think like the first thing I read about a networking computer was Colossus, the Forbin project, which was made into a movie with Eric Braeden in it. But, American computer hooks up with a Soviet computer and it takes over the world.
Yes.
And then, another one was Harlan Ellison, I Have No Mouth, and I Must Scream, about an evil computer that could have been AI, You could have substituted a computer with AI, kept the last 5 human beings on Earth prisoner and tortured them and all that. But the one that really got me, I just read the other day, was nothing to do with science fiction. It was a poet he was a writer. He used to write for Rolling Stone, a guy named Richard Brodigan. And he had a book of poems, and it was called, the name of the book was The Pill versus the Spring Hill Mine Disaster. And I think it was the opening poem, or one of the opening, it was close to it anyway. It was a poem called Machines of Loving Grace. And I thought, yeah, okay. And anyway, the point I wanted to make is that people back then didn't know what the computer was. We got them sitting, we got desktops sitting at, well, that's what I'm on right now. We got laptops, desktops, phones, and, the thing that we feared back then, this is like everyday stuff, and maybe the AI thing's not going to turn out to be as bad as everybody's thinking it's going to be. It's just really, it's intended to be a tool, and in proper hands it will be. And of course, like computers in improper hands are causing us all the grief we're getting now. But, like Charles said before, it's probably a part of our cultural evolution. Probably. I don't know if they'll go transhuman with it yet or not, but
Well, I hope you're right, Chuck. I hope you're right. I remember when computers were sold to us as a time-saving device, and how we would have so much leisure time. How did that work out? Now we work from home. We're constantly on the computer. It didn't save us any time or really much in the way of leisure. I think it sort of enslaved us to some extent. So I'm hoping you're right about AI. That all of the worst case scenarios about the technological singularity and massive job displacement and all of that isn't going to happen. But I see signs of it. I don't see any way around the massive job displacement. The technological singularity, I don't know. That's above my pay scale if that's going to happen. But it does concern me. And again, I'm a dinosaur, admittedly. I have 2 feet firmly planted in the analog world. I'm just not suited for this. I'm probably not going to live long enough to see the worst of AI or this whole transhumanism movement. But my kids are going to have to live through it. My grandkids. Great call, Chuck. Thank you so much. Let's see. Who else? Someone else wanted to talk. Oh, here it is. Rico is in Bakersfield, California. I think he wanted to touch on this as well. Hey, Rico. Welcome. Good morning. Good, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, yeah, I was listening to your previous guest, but I wasn't able to get in on the line. But basically, what I was going to mention, he mentioned something about the future of AI and its capabilities. Like projecting people's personalities and whatever. And by coincidence today, or maybe not by coincidence, I listened to a program on NPR, and it was a guy who was being interviewed, and he basically started a company called You Only Virtual, where they create a virtual persona. Mm-hmm. And he did it because his mom was dying from cancer, so he didn't want to have her die and not have any contact with her. So he actually created her virtual persona before she died. And on the radio, they played her real voice in some of the conversations that were recorded. And then they actually played a conversation with him and the virtual persona after she passed away. The voice was almost identical. And he was asking her questions that weren't pre-programmed, and it was answering. It was crazy.
Wow. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. So
how do you feel about that?
As a service, pardon me?
How do you feel about that?
Well, I can understand his motivation was grief. He didn't want to. He was very close with his mom. They went through a lot together because they were together without a father in the home for quite a while. But he just wanted to remain close to her in any way possible. And his stepdad actually was a software engineer, and he helped them do everything to start his company, I guess, with whatever kind of algorithms had to be set up or whatever. But anyway, how I feel about it, I think it's kind of a good thing. But like your previous caller said, how would we ever be able to rein in everybody to follow the rules? It's
right. We don't. And what are the rules? We haven't even established.
Exactly.
What are the rules?
Some countries aren't. They're not going to be playing by any rules. They're going to make up their own rules. They aren't going to.
In terms of this, let's call it sort of a digital necromancy, and resurrecting the dead, and this idea of having them there, having conversations. I mean, going through an old photo book and remembering, or watching a home movie, or maybe even with video and hearing their voice again. That's one thing, but let's call it for what it is, to pretend they're still there and you're having an actual conversation with a sentient being, and that's your mother. I don't know. Don't you think that kind of it distorts the grieving process? It distorts it. I mean, you're not really letting go, are you?
No, and he did mention something about the grieving process. He said there is no grieving process. He said, you're always grieving. And he's right in that sense. I lost a daughter almost 30 years ago, okay?
I'm so sorry.
My firstborn daughter passed away when she was just about 14.
Oh,
I
dear.
know what it is
So sorry.
as a child and to grieve. And I think, a process, I don't really think we should call it a process, because a process kind of indicates some kind of a system. And when it comes to grieving, everybody does it in their own way. There's no, set pattern or protocol for grieving. It's not like a system. It's, you grieve different than me, and I don't know. In that respect, I don't think what he did with this virtual persona is really something that most people would be willing to participate in, because it's.
I don't know. There's a market. There are companies now.
Well, he's not doing very well. He's not doing very well with his company. He was mentioning he only has, I think, 30 or 40 members, subscribers.
Right.
You pay like $200 a year for the setup fee, and I was Googling it today, and then it's like a $20 a month premium that you're paying to keep on.
I was reading about I thought it was a Chinese company, but Joe Allen corrected me, and it's a South Korean company. This is a big
American
company.
He grew up in San Francisco, and in that respect, like you asked me, how do I feel about it? I don't really think that it's natural. That it is kind of bizarre trying to talk to somebody, and pretending that you still have a bond when they've already passed on, and but then again, it was answering some questions, like I said, that weren't pre-programmed.
Yeah, that's where it's going. That's where the technology is going. Rico, thank you so much. I appreciate the call. How much longer before that voice becomes a robot, a life-like robot, an exact likeness of a dead relative, able to participate in two-way conversations, then you never let go. And I think you could get lost in that. You would get lost. Your relative is gone, but they're not. I don't know. To me, that's just not healthy. But as you say, Rico, people, are free to grieve in whichever way whatever works for them. Let's see. Let's say hi to, where are we going next? Joe is in Monterey, California. Hey, Joe, welcome.
Thank you, Richard. And I've been online for so long, I had to change my questions and stuff. The EVR. You know what EVR
the EVR
is? It's technology that you can talk to the other side. It won't take long for them to develop it and actually perfect it, where people who do pass on, they will be able to talk through whatever machines that you might have at home. And also there are people that talk to their dead all the time. They actually communicate and see, and that's something that anyone can learn. My call was about to encourage people to develop themselves so they can be their own divine intervention. We have a higher self, and any time that we are up against the wall, we get very creative. That's our higher self seeking for survival, and it happens more often with people when they develop themselves. Another thing, my clients, they can talk to the other side, and they can go back to their past lives and intervene on themselves. And this is interesting because one time I went back, my client and I went back, and they intervened to correct a pattern, just like a psychologist that talks to you and wants to go to the root of the trauma. Well, they went back, and this was 17 or 1600s, and she introduced herself to who she was back then. And the thing that came out of his mind was, and it just made me laugh. He said, "Miracle of miracles, because there was something that came into his life that he couldn't explain, so he thought it was a miracle. How many of us who can do this intervene and are our own, let's say, angels or intervention? Well, people could learn this and they could do this, and we could change reality.
All right, Joe, appreciate that. Well, whatever works, I guess, for people. When it comes to divine intervention, I kind of like the old-fashioned kind, and that's God. I don't rely on my higher self. I put my faith elsewhere, but thank you for that, Joe. Do I have time for one more quick one? A real quick one from Marcy in San Diego. Hey, Marcy, welcome to Coast. Good morning. Hey,
Hi.
Marcy, are you there? Hi there. I just got 2 minutes.
You sound so much like Ian Punnett. I wonder if it's got ventricular. I can't pronounce it.
Ventriloquist. Yes, and if you'll notice that whenever I'm drinking a glass of water, Ian never speaks.
Right. I had two comments. One was about a Bible prediction. If you can let me make the two comments, maybe you could hold me over. The first one was about Suzanne Summers dying. She went on TV and she said, "I will be the oldest living woman in this country. You just watch me. I'm going to be way over 100." And she put out a whole series of books on all this health stuff you can do. And she was doing all these high-tech, expensive things on herself where all of her nutrients were tested by a chemist to match her blood. And so I got down my book that she wrote about all this health stuff, and I turned to the thing about breast cancer because that's what she died with. And it said, "I used to have breast cancer, but the doctors told me to quit taking estrogen because older women, it brings on breast cancer. But that's not right. I don't agree, and I take my estrogen pills." Now, I happen to know something about this because I haven't had any female organs since I was 30, and I'm 80. So I had
okay,
estrogen.
Marcy, I got to run. I got to take a break here. So you hold on, and we'll get to the rest of your comment after the break. Taking us into the break, here's the band and Atlantic City. Back with more of your calls after this on Coast to Coast AM.